if you have a deficient candidate, and he's going to bring, according to their own campaign director, he's bringing a valueless candidate to add to him, electoral valueless. Let me put it that way, electoral valueless, because of course I respect him for his knowledge in the accounting sector. But in terms of elections, he has no following whatsoever. In his own hometown, he lost. And I can assure you that if they take a vote in his house, he will lose in his own house, because the Bawumia family, everybody knows where the Bawumia family stands. So we are just waiting. But the interesting thing about what Kennedy said is that he said that among all the names that are being paraded, among all the names, talk about Amdris Dere, talk about Haruna, talk about Jahula, talk about any other person that is done, Bawumia, who according to him is insignificant electorally, is the best.
Wow. So
if the insignificant person is the best, then we have a problem in that Caucus.
Yeah.
I mean, compare that Caucus to the John and John ticket. Yeah. The president himself can stand on his own, high credibility, no blemish whatsoever. Taught law for 25 years, no dent at all. Became IRS boss, almost 10 years, no dent. Has become a vice president. Now you have a vice presidential candidate in the person of John Mahama. In terms of credibility, no match. So if you have these two partnering each other against a deficient candidate with a valueless, electoral valueless running mate, then like my brother said, of course it's a done deal.
I think, you see, I think that, I mean, Dr. Arthur Kennedy is not the first time he's making these comments. You would notice from this book of his, Chasing the Elephant into the Bush, the Politics of Complacency, which he wrote after he had managed Nana Addo's campaign as Director of Communications in 2008. You know, he had written also about the candidate, Dr. Bawumia. You know, I think that to begin with, he traces Dr. Bawumia's own roots within the NPP, which in this book he writes that his membership of the party itself was questionable. Okay. You know, that's something that is captured.
So he was considered more like an outsider.
Absolutely. You know, if you spare me just a minute, he writes something about, here he says, I hope I can find a relevant page, but he writes to the effect that in the end, as Damboche put it, once Nana Akufo-Addo proposed Dr. Bawumia, he was as good as nominated. The NPP constitution requires the presidential candidate to nominate his running mate in consultation, and reading page 68, with the National Executive Committee. The question was the meaning of consult. A few days afterwards, I met Professor Okwe, who tried to put it all in context. And here is about, he's raising issues about how the party in one breath says that if you are not a member who has nurtured the party, you cannot contest. And yet Dr. Bawumia's membership was, was totally in doubt of the party. That itself raised issues for the NPP. And you recall that, and here page 66, Dr. Kennedy writes, over the airwaves, it was beginning to leak that it will be Dr. Bawumia, and some in the party, including Honorable Kennedy Japan, were vowing resistance. He condemned the proposed choice and said if Bawumia was picked, he would leave them to campaign alone. You know, so again, it tells you of the likely impact and the level of divisions that, Bawumia's, because he's not a member of a party, because he brings nothing to the table, because in the words of Dr. Arthur Kennedy, he electorally, he's insignificant. The levels of division but that is a problem for them. Again, the same Dr. Arthur Kennedy writes in this same book at page 69 that in the end, here he's doing a comparative analysis of Dr. Bawumia and the NDC's running mate at the time, John Mahama. Okay. He says that in the end, it appears that John Mahama brought more to the NDC ticket than Dr. Bawumia brought to the MPP ticket. Okay. Here again, he's underscoring the fact that Bawumia is politically a liability, insignificant. when Dr. Bawumia went to visit the press after his nomination, he was going to introduce himself. But when John Mahama went, he was visiting old friends. Okay. While towards the end, Bawumia took off on his own to campaign and work very hard. He never had the impact. This is Dr. Kennedy's words. He never had the impact that John Mahama had. Again, he's underscoring the fact that when it comes to elections politically,
John is far ahead of
exactly, Bawumia. And Dr. Bawumia is, I mean, his impact is insignificant. Right from the beginning, not enough went into it. Then he says that, so he goes on and on and on and talks about Dr. Bawumia, and, you know, so but I am happy. I am happy that they are bringing a person who politically is insignificant, who has no political constituency, who in terms of governance is inexperienced. He might be a technocrat though. I am happy because he's not going to add anything, and these are not my words. Yeah. This is coming from their own director of communications for the last elections, a man who was at the very center of Nana Addo's campaign. And you know the level of backlash that Dr. Kennedy has received for publishing this book. That notwithstanding, he's done a follow-up to this publication, a sequel, in which he's responded to those calls. And just this morning, he has again gone on radio to speak to the very same issues that, look, the bashing notwithstanding, he thinks that the person that Nana Addo is bringing on board, in this case, Dr. Bawumia, is not going to change the fortunes of the NPP. He's not going to add anything of substantial value, so it's a done deal.
Okay. But it's important to also add that it's not as if it's only Dr. Kennedy who is speaking. We have also heard people like PCR Piofori, who have come out boldly to say that, look, Bawumia is just a political liability, and we don't need to go with them. So it's not like only Dr. Kennedy speaking, but there are others who are adding up. But it's not like we say, we are happy that they will be messing up themselves, because already the ticket itself is not a ticket, so surely you will choose a liability.
Well, I think that, I mean, in fairness to Dr. Bawumia too, I think that part of the problem is not just that he himself is insignificant in terms of, I mean, the political landscape, that he has no constituency, I mean, that he is not an electoral asset, that he's not a governance asset. Again, you know that when you are picking a running mate, what you're trying to do, or what you're saying, is that you need a candidate who shores up, you need a running mate who shores up the standing of a candidate himself. And like people say, you can't put something on nothing, you know, so that in order to partner, say, the MPP's own candidate, Nana Addo, you need somebody with tremendous, I mean, character, say, integrity. You need perhaps 3-4 times the level of Professor Mills, say, credibility, maybe 4 or 5 times, trustworthiness, honesty, and all of that. Anything short of that will be like putting something on nothing, you know, and you can't put something on nothing. And that's why I believe Baba, I mean, describes it the way he does, that if you have a candidate who himself has a lot of questions or issues to deal with, I mean, who in one breath is not appealing to voters in an appropriate manner, who is beating war drums, who is shouting on top of his head, "All die be die," who says that he has to win at all costs and all of that. All these things do not speak well. You know, I think that for us as politicians, what we have to do is to be forthright, you know, because look, what really is the point? What really is the sense if people should sacrifice their lives only for you to be elected as president? When you are president and you have nobody to govern over, of what use is it, you know? So you can't put something on nothing, and it's important that all of us learn lessons like that.
Yeah, Honorable Papa Jamal, government through your office and your good self issued a press statement that workers' salary will be paid early this year. And then I think I've heard 1 or 2 workers say that they've started receiving theirs.
Yes.
How significant is that move on the side of government?
You know, this statement was as a result of a meeting between government and all stakeholders in our economy. They're talking about Ghana Association of Ghana Industries. They're talking about Chamber of Commerce, TUC, bankers, and all those people who came together. The purpose of the meeting was also to explain government's position and also take their concerns on board and see how together we can reduce the hardship on our people. Because no matter how small you increase fuel, it brings some form of hardship to people. And as the president expressed it, the president was one of the toughest decisions the president had to take, considering the circumstances under which we found ourselves. Because in a year, if you are spending close to 600 million subsidizing fuel, then of course we are going to have effect on other sectors. And so we had no choice but to do it this way. But I can assure the public that we have now put in place mechanism to ensure that beyond a certain level, there will be no any increase. And that one I can assure the whole country that nothing like that will happen again, because we have done some form of insurance to take care of that. Okay. So part of the strategy to help people, because the fuel increase came when we were in Christmas and the festivities. People have spent a lot of money. So a lot of people would have gone in for loans and whatnot to cater for these festivities. So bringing the payment forward surely will help people to settle whatever loans or whatever they've taken, and also help them plan better for the next year. And so that's what government did. And government is not doing that alone. As we said, all salary arrears and other allowances that are outstanding, by June, government is clearing all those salaries to ensure that we have a clean sheet and all workers will be in a better position to manage themselves. Okay. Also, you already know that over 200 buses has already been imported into the country. We are going to import more. We are bringing a lot more people on board to ensure that we ease the system. So the point here is that we are a socialist party and we want to think for the people. And that's exactly what we have done, sensitive to the plight of the people. And as I talk to you now, lots of the workers are already receiving their salaries, and I'm sure that by the close of this week, every worker on the government payroll would have taken his salary. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Honorable.
Well, I think that this is a further demonstration of government's own commitment to the good people of Ghana. As a socialist, a party with socialist leanings, what you do is to look at the greater good of a people, which is what has informed these decisions. So it's a testimony of government's own sensitivity towards the good people of Ghana in putting in place measures and interventions to ameliorate, or to check to reduce the hardship which ordinarily will confront people in the wake of the petroleum price hikes. Okay. And as Baba rightly observed, these things have been instituted because government understands, unlike in the past, what we saw was that you heard government officials shout on top of their head that, let's bite the bullet, and some of them were biting chocolate, and buying expensive necklaces and stuff and awarding themselves. So, I think that government has shown enough commitment wanting to reduce the plight of a Ghanaian worker. Because one of the things we notice also is that transportation, quite apart from the high fares that people pay, it's also about the length of time that people spend in order to first access these buses and then staying in traffic, and hence these interventions which have been announced. Okay. Plus the early payment of salaries also for particularly the month of January.
Funds towards the payment of all the school feeding. Government has already released about 25 to 26 million for the payment of all school feeding program. All is to ensure that we reduce the hardship. It is important to understand that it is to show the sort of government which is in place, showing sensitivity to the plight of the people. That's what we want to show to the world.
Okay, that's great. And over the weekend too, I think His Excellency the Vice President was in Liberia. I think that was today or yesterday. Yeah, yesterday, to witness the investiture of Shelif Johnson, who is also doing her second term as